Good day, everyone. Our topic for today is the teacher and the community.
Hello everyone, my name is Rosejel Andales and this is our report. The topic is Resource Dependence Perspective by Jeffrey Prefer Gerald R. Salinsik in Stanford University Press 2003. Among the most widely cited book in the social science, the external control of organization has long been the required reading for any student of organization studies. The book was issued on its 25th anniversary as a part of the Stanford Business Classic series, include a new preface written by Jeffrey Prefer, which examined the legacy of this influential work in current research in its relationship to other theories. The internal controls of organization explore how external constraints affect organization and provide insight for designing and managing organization to mitigate this content. All organizations are dependent on the environment for their survival. As the author contends, it is the fact of the organization dependence on the environment that make the external constraint and control of organizational behavior both possible and almost inevitable. Organization can either try to change their environment through political means or form inter-organizational relationship to control or absorb uncertainty. And this seminal book established the research dependence approach that has informed so many other important organization theories. And the second resource dependence perspective of just-in-time purchasing by Robert B. Hanfeld, Journal of Operation Management 11, 298-311-1993. A substantial body of literature in operation management has emphasized the importance of establishing just-in-time or JIT purchasing with supplier in order to reduce inventory level, reduce inspection, and produce better products. This issue is parallel and research-dependent theory which predict how organization responds to uncertainty within their external environment. The model proposed that supply-based reduction is a response to increased uncertainty and demand, and that GIT is preceded by greater information sharing with fewer suppliers. These hypotheses are embodied in a path analysis model, which is tested for extensions of causal linkage between the construct. The research of the study support that idea that purchasing department and make-to-order firms are likely to reduce the number of critical suppliers in response to uncertainty and demand. The hypothesis that supply-based reduction is an attendance to JIT was not supported. However, the research suggests that the two policies are complementary and that a coordinated program of both GIT purchasing and supply-based consolidation can lead to significant reduction and transaction uncertainty.
Hi, good morning again to everyone. For the next topic from our group, it is General Environmental Resources. So let us define first what is environmental resources. It is any material, service, or information from the environment that is valuable to society. This also can refer to anything that people find useful in their environment or surroundings. Example of environmental resources are food from plants and animals, wood for cooking, heating and building, metals, coal and oil, also clean land, air, and water. So now let's move on. What are the different classifications of environmental resources? So first here is renewable resources or renewable environmental resources. It is defined as those which can be renewed within a relatively short time. Other meaning is one that can be used repeatedly and does not run out because it is naturally replaced. Example of this are water through water cycle, plants and animals and marine life, and this happen through reproduction. Next classification is the non-renewable environmental resources. It is defined as those that cannot be renewed. It is natural resource that cannot be readily replaced by natural means at a quick enough pace to keep up with consumption. Examples are fossil fuels, nuclear fuels, heat traps, and minerals. Next is the continuous environmental resources. It is where the availability is unaffected. Examples are solar or wind energy, running water, solar radiation, wind and tide.
Availability of resources. Natural resource management. The availability of resources focuses on scientific and technical understanding of resources and ecology, and the life-supporting capacity of those resources. Resource availability provides you an overview of resources schedule and a clear picture of who's available to take up the task. A resource can either be partially or fully available, and they must be utilized to their full capacity. Resource availability also plays a fundamental role in resource management. Knowing which resources are available at any given time is an important factor in deciding how to distribute and allocate the right assets for any given project. And the availability of natural resources depends on supply. Many important resources are non-renewable, so once they are used up, they will be gone forever. However, there are also non-renewable resources that exist in abundance. But when we talk about resource availability, we are interested specifically about the availability of your renewable resources, which include your workers, tools, machinery, and space. The renewable resources are those that we have to renew on a periodic basis. For instance, you must assess your workers' availability on a daily basis.
Teacher independence. Excessive independence creates a problem for both teacher and student. An overly dependent student can command so much for attention that you have a little time left to other students. The time spent with an overly dependent student, moreover, is not always helpful. Indeed, his excessive reliance on you and others can limit his involvement with his peers, thus minimizing opportunities to develop essential social skills and stifling his social development. The overly dependent student has a problem with trust, and the person he has trouble trusting is himself. He is reluctant to think for himself, to make a decision for himself, to think for himself. Instead of looking inward for answer, he looked to you for support and assistance. So much so that he risks becoming your constant companion. He seems to spend more time at your desk than at his own. As I bombard you with a blizzard of questions or simply, however, by your side. The goal in working with a overly dependent student is help him become more self-reliant and develop more trust in his own judgment. That requires that you communicate to him your expectation and set firm limits on your interaction. That you give him attention in ways that foster his independence and avoid interaction with him in ways that foster his dependency. Community dependence on the natural resources. The forest ecosystem meets the multiple uses for different subgroups of people. Tribal dependent on forest resources for meeting their employment and livelihood requirements. The Forest Dependency Index, a numerical indicator of the social and economic dependence of a community in Parambicula Tiger Reserve, a highest and high socio-economic dependency, indicate the significance of the forest in the livelihood of the community residing within the reserve. The result of the study show a high dependency level on the forest resources, 43.5%. Creating awareness on the resources dependence provided indicate of sustainable forest management.
For today, we're going to talk about the national standard and framework. What are standards? Standard is what students are expected to learn in each grade in each subject. For example, the students from grades 2 to 3 are expected to count by 2s, 5, and 10 to 100. Each state department of education creates standards for schools within the states. These standards become the basis for the way teachers are trained, what they teach, and what is on state standardized tests that students take. Standards are guideposts for school. Teachers, parents, and students use them as tools to focus on what students are expected to learn. Learning standards are concise, written descriptions of what students are expected to know and be able to do at a specific stage of their education. Learning standards describe educational objectives. For example, what students should have learned by the end of the course, grade level or grade span. In the Philippines, by law, education is compulsory for 13 years, which is the K-12. It is kindergarten and grades 1 to 12, and it is grouped into 3 levels. First is elementary school, which is kindergarten to grade 6, junior high school, which is grade 7 to 10, and lastly senior high school, which is grades 11 to 12. The next one is, where do standards come from? The standards movement grew out of frustration in the late 1990s with a fragmented public school system with many levels of bureaucracy. Local, state, national, in which expectations for students varied widely and too few poor and minorities students were achieving. Why are standards important? Without standards, districts and schools don't have goals to shoot for.
by matching what is taught in the classroom to the standard in each subject area. Students and their parents and teachers will know what teachers should be teaching, what students should be learning, and what they will be tested on. Standard ensures better accountability and let teachers and school responsible for what goes in the classrooms. With standards, it ensures that a higher level of learning is attained and guides teacher in the process of assessment and helps keep them on track. The next one is the curriculum framework. A curriculum framework is an organized plan or set of standards or learning outcomes that defines the content to be learned in terms of clear, definable standard of what the students should know and be able to do. A curriculum framework is a summary of the educational issues facing curriculum development committees. Discussion of how state goals and standards relate to those issues. Structures to help district curriculum development committees address the student standards. Guide for planning professional development. Guide to recommended instructional and assessment strategies. Description of effective instruction and assessment strategies with an analysis of how they address the standards. Collection of reference materials to assist curriculum development committees and other instructors. And lastly, a tool to communicate the goals of the standard to the community. A curriculum framework is part of an outcome-based education or standard-based education reform design. The framework is the second step defining clear, high standards which will be achieved by all students. The curriculum is then aligned to the standards and students are assessed against the standards. When standards are reached, there will be no achievement gap where some groups are allowed to score lower than others or the disabled are offered different opportunities than others.
Another factor in adapting the external environment is the internationalization of education as part of embracing different aspects of improvement in relation to the curriculum. But before that, let us define what is internationalization. According to Mistinhouse 2002, internationalization is a multidimensional learning process that includes the integrative, intercultural, interdisciplinary, and comparative construction and transfer of knowledge. So internationalization is a very important context in higher education to bridge the gap between different cultures and countries. Another definition of internationalization from University of Calgary describes internationalizing the curriculum as the provision of the opportunity to develop an intercultural awareness, whether this involves two or more nations, a single nation where peoples of different cultures cohabit. So in easier term, it is the international relations in adapting knowledge and services among universities worldwide to improve the quality of education. Why globalization caused internationalization to exist? Globalization affects different sectors of society, including higher education, as it has intensified the mobility of ideas and people in this sector. As the role of global interdependence has been accepted in economic, political, and social dynamics, academia's internationalizing function too has become more absorbent of interdependence. All over the world, universities respond to challenges presented by globalization in various ways. One response is the internationalization of the university campuses. In order to get benefit from the global trend, Many educational institutions are trying hard to establish agreements and collaborations with regional, international, and even intercontinental universities. So what are the benefits of internationalization? It can be beneficial in sustaining and growing science and scholarship through dynamic academic exchanges and building social and economic capacity in developing countries. Western universities are also establishing powerful international networks and associations to mobilize aptitude and ability in favor of transfer of knowledge, advanced policies, and global research for enhancing investment and measuring impact. So in this way, access is provided to higher education in countries where local institutions cannot meet the demands. The positive aspects of internationalization also include the following: improved academic quality, internationally oriented students and staffs, national and international citizenship for students and staff from underdeveloped countries, and for developed countries, revenue generation and brain gain are potential benefits. Further, internationalization has also the potential to change the lives of international students as it helps in producing graduates who are intentionally knowledgeable and cross-culturally sensitive. This also facilitates in engendering the international characteristics fostered in students that are desirable in a global economy, such as international mindedness and open-mindedness, second language competence, flexibility of thinking, tolerance, and respect for others. Though a lot of positive attention has been given to the internationalization of higher education, it has also negative challenges that are part of this multifaceted and growing phenomenon. So the first is, motives behind internationalization efforts is profit motive, as many universities see international efforts as a way to attract revenue to balance their budgets. The international universities are eager to recruit international students so that they can charge their higher fees. Second, the loss of cultural or national identity, homogenization of international curriculum, and brain drain are threats to cultural values of the host society, because this internationalization process includes the mixed nationality and race that could affect the culture of a student. And according to C.THE 2007, the loss of cultural identity is definitely the most significant risk factor attached to the process of internationalization. Third, widening the gap between socioeconomic classes and thus creating discrimination among developing society's students. And the last, quality assurance is another main problem, as many objectives have been raised regarding the low standard of the international higher education program. Since higher education institutions are the essential actors in creating well-balanced and constructive internationalization strategies, they must advocate for policy change at the governmental level if the policies are driving internationalization in directions that might not serve long-term academic purposes.
The world is becoming more and more interconnected to each other. Every day, we experience the worldwide movement of people, technologies, ideas, money, goods and services, data, drugs, weapons, and more. So for this afternoon, we will be talking about globalization. And I am back, Charlene Oclarit reporting. Globalization is a fuel of development. It exchanges everything we can offer to global market and for global competition. Globalization has different types, and the following types are the technological and cultural globalization, economical, educational, political globalization. Economically speaking, according to Bagwati 2007, it constitutes integration of national economies into international economy through trade, direct foreign investment, short-term capital flows, international flows of workers and humanity, generally and flows of technology. In economical globalization, It involves a wide variety of processes, opportunities, and problems related to the spread of economic activities among countries around the world. The second type or second field is a political globalization. It is one dimension of a process that is multidimensional. It is a growth of the worldwide political system, both size and complexity. Political system includes national governments, their governmental and intergovernmental organizations, as well as the government-independent elements of global civil society, such as international, non-governmental organizations, and social movement organizations. The following are examples of political globalization. The first example is the European Union. The second is intergovernmental agency like the International Monetary Fund, World Trade Organization, and United Nations. The real purpose of this political organizational government is to better serve the people through implementing rights, law enforcement that guide community to manage the economy and foreign relations, in addition to support the needs of people when scarcity happens. The next one is the cultural globalization. It defines a transmission of ideas, meanings, and values around the world in such way as to extend and intensify social relations. Cultural globalization also involves the formation of shared norms and knowledge with which people associate their individual and collective cultural identities. Cultural globalization identity provides a global significance of local knowledge in the sense of self, community, and nation. So the second for the last part is technological globalization. It is speeded in large part by technological diffusion, the spread of technology across borders. So why is technological globalization is important? It is important because it's a key driver of progress to improve incomes and standards living. Technology is overcoming the major hurdles of globalization in international trades such as trade barrier, lack of common ethical standards, transportation costs, and delay of information exchange. So the last of fields or types of globalization is educational globalization. It meets the knowledge, education, and learning challenges and opportunities. Educational globalization enhances the ability of learners to assess, adopt, and apply knowledge, to think independently, to exercise appropriate judgment, and to collaborate with others to make sense of new situations. So as you can see here, the comparison of traditional versus modern education. This is where the globalization in education is not yet totally arise, and the other one is when the globalization finally reached the needs of students as well as the teachers. During the traditional learning, the use of conventional learning tools comprising of blackboards, chalks, books, and pens. While when the globalization totally appears, the education system becomes modern. We gain knowledge through the use of internet. Also, our learnings is gain knowledge through the use of internet. Also, our learnings is all about the skills of science and technology. Includes writing, visualizing, imagining, and thinking skills. So here we go to the last part of our lectures, the general advantages and disadvantages of globalization. The advantages are people can connect beyond the borders through online communication. The second bullet, people can understand the norms of other culture. Through globalization, business can run globally and launch their product worldwide. People also can get social awareness about the culture conflicts around the world. The possibility of war between the developed countries decreases. And the last one, it promotes workplaces or world peace by connecting people each other. If there is advantages, there are also disadvantages. The first one is the difference in perception can create conflicts, widening of gap between rich and poor countries because most of the rich countries are not communicating with the poor country even in the era of globalization. It also increases the level of unemployment in countries as jobs are outsourced to other countries that pay lower wages. And the last one is as dominant cultures come to forefront, the ethical, moral, and cultural crises of each country of the world are lost and misunderstood. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you for listening and have a good day ahead.
Code of Ethics. I will discussing about the teacher and the community. Teachers' ethical and professional behavior. for professional teacher, Article 3. The very title of this unit indicates that teachers are expected to be part of that community. To be part of the community definitely means to participate in that community. The 8 sections of Article 3 of the Code of Ethics refers to the community within the school and the community outside the school. Teacher as the facilitator of learning. Article 3, Section 1 states that the teacher is a facilitator of learning and the development of the youth. Therefore, shall render the best service by providing an environment conducive for such learning and growth. To facilitate learning, a conducive learning environment is necessary. It has been proven that learners learn best in a pleasant environment. A pleasant environment is where the learners can be themselves because teachers are caring. No need to put best self forward because teachers and classmates truly care and take you for who you are. All forms of bullying has no place in a conducive learning environment. A conducive learning environment makes learners believe they can do the work and they feel accepted. A favorable learning climate is not competitive where everyone is tense. Teacher leadership and initiative for community participation. Section 2 refers to the leadership and initiative of the professional teacher to participate in community movements for moral, social, economic, and civic betterment of the community. As professional teachers, you do not live in an ivory tower, meaning you are not supposed to be removed nor aloof from community life. Schools are the heart of the communities, and you as the professional teachers are expected to be in the world and to be in the world with others and for others. You do not just welcome the opportunity to lead. Section 2 states that you, the professional teacher, ought to take the initiative to offer you help for the improvement of the community. Many a time, you can be a guidance counselor, a prayer leader, commentator or reader in religious celebrations, fiesta coordinator, judge in or coach for a test, financial advertiser, a nurse, a doctor, commentator, prayer rolled into ones. Providing leadership and initiative also means working with the community. This means getting the parents and the other members of the community participate in school activities. Teachers, as they participate in community affairs, prove that they are the most responsible and most important members of society because their professional efforts affect the fate of the earth. Professional teacher with honor and dignity. Section 3 states that every teacher shall merit reasonable social recognition, for which purposes he shall behave with honor and dignity at all times, and refrain from such activities as gambling, smoking, drunkenness, and other excesses, much less illicit relations. Society express so much of teachers that when they fail to live up the challenge to behave or model good behavior, they are condemned with trial. It is no wonder why many are afraid to answer the call to teach. Society seems to expect much more from professional teachers than from any other professional, and so look at with others with scrutinizing eyes. The quotation states, "The influence of a good teacher can never be erased, but the influence of a dishonorable teacher is as lasting." Teachers' attitude towards local customs and traditions. Section 4 expects every teacher to live for and with the community and shall, therefore, study and understand local customs and traditions, in order to have a sympathetic attitude, therefore, refrain from disparaging the community. The professional teacher is neither ethnocentric nor xenocentric. She is not ethnocentric and so does not look down on community's culture because of the thought that his or her culture is superior to the culture of the community. Neither he or she is ethnocentric and so looks at his or her culture as inferior into other communities' culture. Fortunate and happy is the community that has teachers who live with them, exert effort to understand their local customs and traditions, and consequently appreciate the same. This author sees no culture as perfect. Every culture, including hers, has its positive and negative aspects. What we need to pass on are the positive aspects of the culture. We need to purify, however, the negative aspects with teacher pointing them out tactfully and sincerely. The professional teacher in information update. Section 5 states that the teacher shall help the school inform the community about the school works, accomplishments, needs, and problems. Community here to internal as well as external. Internal stakeholders include the students, the parents of the students, and the teachers. The external stakeholders are the other parents in the community without children enrolled in schools. In barangay officials and other government officials, non-government organizations, government organizations, alumni, and retirees. The school is there for the community, and so the community has the right to be informed about its activities, accomplishments, needs, and problems. Informing them about the school's projects, needs, and problems give them a sense of ownership. Having a sense of ownership, these stakeholders will participate more actively in the resolution of school's problems and needs. The Parents Teachers Association. We have Parents and Teachers Association, or the PTA, in place in every school. Some private schools call it Homeschool Association or Family Advisory Council. This is for internal stakeholders only. A PTA is an association of teachers and parents with children who are enrolled in a school. It is a forum for discussions on school problems and how they can be solved. The School Governing Council. Other than PTA is the School Governing Council. The SGC has different membership and functions. A School Governing Council as a policy-making body has the school head as Chief Executive Officer, Manager, and Chief Operations Officer. The formation of SGC in every school is a proof of school head sharing his or her leadership with members of the community. It determines general policies on student welfare, discipline, well-being. It is concerned with the development and implementation, monitoring and evaluating of the School Improvement Plan, or the SIP, and reporting of the progress of the SIP implementations to the school's division, superintendent, and the community. In addition to PTA, are the School Governing Council in every public school. The School Governing Council shares in the management of the school with school head as chair. This school council is another opportunity for communities to participate in school activities. The professional teacher and government officials and other professionals. Section 7 states, every teacher shall maintain harmonious and decent personal and official relations with other professionals.
with government officials, and with the people individually or collectively. As a professional teacher, you cannot afford not to be in a pleasant relations with others, especially those with whom you work with, like and other professional teachers. It is always best to be in a good terms with everyone else in the community. Desiderata give this advice. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, when the dull and the ignorant they too have their story. The professional teacher does not use possession to proselyte. Finally, Section 8 says, a teacher possesses freedom to attend church and worship as appropriate, but shall not use his position and influence to proselyte others. To be in a position means to have power or influence for a purpose. For you to use that position to perform your job as a professional teacher, it is highly unprofessional for a teacher like you to use your position of influence to proselyte others. Besides, freedom of religion is guaranteed by the 1987 Philippines Constitution, saying that no law shall be made respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The free exercise and enjoyment of religious professions and worship, without discrimination or preferences, shall forever be allowed.
The teacher and the state. As mandated in the Code of Ethics for professional teachers, they have the responsibility to interact positively not just with parents, community members, and other stakeholders of the school, but in the state itself. Being a teacher, they must recognize that education is a public service and strive to keep the public informed of the programs, projects, and activities. As stated in Article 2, the teacher and the state, Section 1, the schools are the nurseries of the future citizens and of the state. Each teacher is a trustee of the cultural and educational heritage of the nation and is under obligation to transmit to learners such heritage as well as to elevate national morality, promote national pride, cultivate love of country, instill allegiance to the Constitution and for all duly constituted authorities, and promote obedience to the laws of the state. As a teacher, they must appraise the state by educating the citizens so that the state will be known internationally in a positive way. Section 2. Every teacher or school official shall actively help carry out the declared policies of the state and shall take an oath to this effect. As an educator, they don't just help carry out the declared policies of the state but strictly follow it. Citizens will follow if the authorities themselves are following the policies. Teachers shall take an oath to this effect to show their promise about their behavior and their action. Section 3. In the interest of the state and of the Filipino people as much as of his own, every teacher shall be physically, mentally, and morally fit. Teachers shall be physically, mentally, and morally fit to carry out and serve the best for the state and its citizens. Section 4. Every teacher shall possess and actualize a full commitment and devotion to duty. Teachers should possess an attitude of persistence in working to do or support something. Teachers should possess these attitudes because they are role models. They have to be the epitome of working performance, ethics, and attitudes. Section 5. A teacher shall not engage in the promotion of any political, religious, or other parties and interests, and shall not directly or indirectly solicit, require, collect, or receive any money or service or other valuable material from any person or entity for such purposes. Teachers are educators, and they shall not promote politics to avoid being biased. And sometimes, teachers are the election inspectors. Promoting any religion will likewise serve best its clienteles of being multiculturalist and fully aware of public service, giving service rather than personal gains. The separation of the church and the state cannot be denied as stated in the Constitution. Section 6. Every teacher shall vote and shall exercise all other constitutional rights and responsibility. Teachers can choose politicians on their own, choose wisely, and vote for those worthy because it contributes not just to the citizens but also the states. Section 7. A teacher shall not use his position or facial authority or influence to coerce any other person to follow any political course of action. Anyone is prohibited from influencing others to do something using force or threats to join any group's activities. Nobody should use his position to coerce any person to any political events, not just teachers. Section 8. Every teacher shall enjoy academic freedom and shall have privilege of expounding the product of his researches and investigations, provided that, if the results are inimical to the declared policies of the state, they shall be brought to the proper authorities for appropriate remedial action. Academic freedom is identifying who will teach, what will be taught, how it will be taught, and who may be admitted to study. But this academic freedom can only be fully enjoyed in the tertiary education as the Philippine Constitution provides. There is no effusively academic freedom in the basic education in the country. Conversely, teachers have the privilege to expound their knowledge. They can pursue professional advancement studies and even do research and investigation for the betterment of the state. That's all. Thank you.